seeing Donald Trump get up after getting shot in the face and pump his fist in the air with the American flag is one of the most badass things I've ever seen in my life.
I do have some rationale as to why I believe that Zuckerberg has changed at least a little bit. I'm not saying that he's going to be voting a straight Republican ticket, but I think he probably has some newfound appreciation for traditionally masculine values, which are traditionally inherently conservative values. And I think a big part of that would have to be with his social circle and some of the activities in which he partakes right now. Here's the beauty of their lying now. The lying has gotten so bad that now I'm not saying that Zuckerberg is an ally, to be clear.
Right.
This is a guy who definitely did also help, help subvert democracy. Absolutely, yeah, really. When they banned a lot of these stories, let's just call it what it is. And a company that has personally throttled yours truly. That's how I met my half-Asian lawyer, Bill Richmond. Right. They effectively admitted it. This was discovered in public, so it's not a conspiracy. It happened. Yeah. They kind of corrected it, and there were monies that exchanged hands that proved that it happened. There's a legal record. So I've experienced it. I know what Facebook is, what Instagram is, and I'm also a little leery of X. Yeah. With Elon Musk, considering I think he's on the right track, but
you mean them joining GARM?
Yeah, there's no trust and verify now. It's verify and people need to earn your trust. Period. That's the way I believe we need to approach celebrities, any of these tech oligarchs. But I do have some rationale as to why I believe that Zuckerberg has changed at least a little bit. I'm not saying that he's going to be voting a straight Republican ticket, but I think he probably has some newfound appreciation for traditionally masculine values, which are traditionally inherently conservative values. And I think a big part of that would have to be with his social circle and some of the activities in which he partakes right now. So let's go through. There's no denying that this guy's had one of the best makeovers in modern public history.
Yeah.
Zuckerberg was the robot who sipped water.
Didn't blink.
Social Network came out. It was not particularly flattering. Didn't blink. And now he's kind of turning into not a bro, but a human, if you will.
So he went from Napoleon Dynamite to Dynamite.
That's right.
Dynamite.
Yes. Also, when he speaks, he also goes hamburger. I'm like, what is this?
Oh man, nailed that line.
Dougie, quack, quack.
God, he nailed it.
So last week in an interview with Bloomberg, in case you missed it, Mark Zuckerberg actually had some positive things to say about President Trump post-assassination attempt.
I've done some stuff personally in the past. I'm not planning on doing that this time.
Yo, fit check.
That includes, not endorsing either of the candidates. Now, look, there's obviously a lot of crazy stuff going on in the world. The historic events over over the weekend. And, on a personal note, it's, seeing Donald Trump get up after getting shot in the face and pump his fist in the air with the American flag is one of the most badass things I've ever seen in my life. But look, it's
she's so upset.
And I think, look, at some level as an American, it's like hard to not get kind of emotional about that spirit and that fight. And I think that's why a lot of people like the guy.
I do. I think it awakened something in a lot of people that they felt they needed. A lot of people lost their pride in being American or lost their way in what it meant to be an American. And as much as they tried to browbeat anyone who used the words fight or had the fighting spirit, right? They actually tried to demonize the term fight like hell. This is a country founded on fighting. This is a country where Donald Trump would not have been a radical exception back in the day in the era of the George Washingtons of the world. That was what was expected of you, to be a leader here in this country, because this country was founded upon violence. Violence for freedom. I mean that. That's why you'll never hear me say political violence is never the answer. It's very, very rarely the answer, and we have institutions to eliminate it as the go-to answer. But make no mistake, there is a violent history here in the United States. Something else that I noticed there, he said, I'm going to do some things differently. The left, people like Mark Zuckerberg, they grow a conscience. And so what is he going to do? He says, I'm not going to endorse anybody. He thinks that's the right thing. For the very first time, we here officially endorse Donald Trump because we said that's the right thing to do. In other words, we both acknowledge, the left and the right, this is the most important election of our lifetime. Things have gotten bad. So we've decided we're going to actually put our money where our mouth is. Their moral act is, so I'm actually I'm going to remain completely neutral now, as though it's some act of virtue. Very different contrast. Again, the lack of accountability, the lack of taking a stand for something. But not to, I mean, it's no small thing, the chain.
No,
The
It's not a big
the
thing.
hairdo.
It's a good sized chain.
Looks like he
It's
could
real
be-
gold, obviously. I mean, that guy doesn't need to be flashy.
Like,
we all know he's a billionaire.
I don't know if he's dropping a mixtape or it's his first communion.
I'm not
But
sure.
I think he just heard some Portuguese for the first time.
Yes.
He's like, I need to get some gold on this neck. El Dorado, my ass.
But he also, did you see that he posted this? I don't know if it was Instagram or Facebook on the 4th of July. This is something that you would have never imagined from Mark Zuckerberg. And again, it shouldn't be a big deal, American flag patriotism, but with someone who clearly in the past has hated everything that America is about through his policies at Facebook, this 4th of July video from Zuck is meaningful.
It's very cool, too, I gotta admit.
Yeah.
It is pretty cool.
Unbiased, that's cool as hell, man.
Although he picked a crappy song.
Yeah,
What's
shitty
the-
song.
It's a song that's mocking the United States, but all right, you can cut it. Zuck needs to learn how to edit. Apparently, he's tearing a page from the Peter Jackson book. Now,
I like it. By the way, let me go back to that really quickly, his interview. You saw, I don't know if, it seems very obvious to me now after watching it, like he was excited
yeah,
that he could speak about this. It seems like maybe this thought has been there for a little while.
yeah.
I don't know to what form or to what level, but it seems like he finally had an excuse to be able to say it. And it was just kind of like coming out of him, whether he wanted to or not.
Yeah.
And he was excited to be able to, and then he goes, but you know, and he had to kind of tone it back down a little bit. I feel like that's where so many people that might lean Republican or maybe don't hate Donald Trump as much, because I don't think Zuck necessarily leans Republican, maybe does a little bit. They have to be in corporate America.
Right.
Like that was a badass moment, but of course he does
Well,
mean
can
stuff.
Mission Control bring it up? Was it 95 or 99% of donations from Palo Alto went to the Democrat Party? And here's why I think you're seeing a change. And this is why I always say it's in your day-to-day interactions with people. Not everyone has a platform. We're very blessed to have through your support. Not everyone can reach millions of people, but you can reach thousands just by reaching the dozens in your life. And in Palo Alto, it's a monolith. It's either 99 or 95%. I know Mission Control will bring it up as far as the political donations there. You could go to the most liberal district in the United States and not find that kind of a political monolith. Even in San Francisco, you still would find more people who at least break with the pack and are Republicans. That's by design. And so the one thing that you see, and this is why you see so many policies and these people get so far gone, where, yeah, there's 57 genders. And sure, men can, it's hate speech to say that men shouldn't be competing in women's sports. Biological males shouldn't be competing in women's sports. You go, well, how are you so out of touch? It's because it is such an echo chamber. While they accuse you of being radicalized on social media, as you actually have to actively find conservative enclaves, politically critical enclaves. Here's why I think, here's how I know that changed. Mark Zuckerberg started studying Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Now, for anyone out there, and if you're in chat, I'm not talking about fighting or, belts. That's not what we're going to be discussing. Right. But if anyone out there has ever actually taken up a sport like Jiu-Jitsu, or it could be judo, a real combat sport, where one can actively compete with a team. It is a very intimate endeavor where you are in close physical proximity with your teammates, both men and women. You're sweating on each other, grappling each other. You are effectively bringing each other close to the brink of death or maiming. That's what jiu-jitsu is. This tap, if someone's choking you, if someone's joint locking you, that's saying, oh, thanks, I trust you, let go, we get to train another time. Otherwise, you snap my arm. Otherwise, I go unconscious. And so you have to put trust in people you train with. And it isn't like Palo Alto. I guarantee you, any jiu-jitsu school in the country, first off, individual sports, combat sports, if you look at the UFC, they tend to lean more conservative because it tends to attract rugged individualists. But you do have liberals. You do have socialists. When I would practice jiu-jitsu, I would roll. I remember there was one big guy who had an upside-down cross tattooed. He was a very staunch atheist. But you know what? We did okay. I had someone who was a big Bernie supporter who was a socialist. And you know what? We did okay. And you have to learn to trust people with your life. And then when you give them that trust and they do protect you or they take care of you, it does create a kinship where you go, okay, I have to allow for the fact that this may be a decent person. That person could have seriously hurt me. That person could have seriously harmed me. I have to acknowledge the humanity in that person. And for the first time, not only is Mark Zuckerberg going through something, putting himself in a challenging situation where it's also entirely a meritocracy. There is no cheating what happens on the mat. You're either better than the next person or you are not. There's no DEI. It doesn't matter. You either get a medal at a tournament or you don't. You either learn how to protect life and limb or you don't. Combined with the fact that he is, without a doubt, encountering more people of different political persuasions than he ever has throughout his entire tenure in Silicon Valley. Of that, I have no doubt. And so it's no small thing. And you even see Mark Zuckerberg showing up at UFC events. I think we have an overlay of one of those images. So we know that this has become a pretty big part of his life. There was going to be that match between him and Elon Musk at one point. I don't think it's actually going to happen. But I will say I've seen that change people. I've seen it happen. I've seen it happen where people have come in to the jiu-jitsu school and they leave more conservative just because they had never encountered these ideas. I mean, I've watched my dad do it, where when we're on a break, we're grabbing some water, he talks about the election, he talks about politics, he talks about these issues, and people had never thought of it. And some people have come in. I've actually watched in jiu-jitsu someone come in who said, why would I do jiu-jitsu because I never want to use a gun? And watched Pops Crowder say, like, well, you realize the UFC heavyweight champion carries a gun, right? At that point, I think he was talking about Frank Mir. He's like, he talks about it because he knows that this isn't, you need to be able to protect your life and you understand the Second Amendment. Do you know why people care? You think you're going to use your jiu-jitsu if someone has a knife or has a gun? And they go, what do you mean? No, this isn't enough. This is great. But this is the reason for the Second Amendment. I have watched people come in who were completely anti-gun. They were activists and within months purchased their first firearm. I've watched that happen, and it was entirely because of the community in jiu-jitsu to which they would have never been exposed otherwise. It's very, very rare that you see someone who has taken an active role in a jiu-jitsu team, a school, a real place, by the way, where they compete. And even if you don't compete, you also have to understand that you support the competitors, right? It's a different environment in the school. I've never seen a single person go in there and leave with blanket hatred for one group of people of a political persuasion. It does change you because you have to. You are forced not only into close physical proximity, but you are forced to trust them in some capacity. And if those people protect you and they don't abuse your trust, invariably they earn some of your respect. That is 100%. It's been my experience. I've never seen it go any other way. And if you've done any of these sports, whether it's jiu-jitsu, judo, boxing, a place where you're actually sparring, where you're actually combating somebody, let me know. Please, I want to hear from you in chat. I'm sure that has played a huge role just in taking him out of that echo chamber where he goes, wait a second.
Exactly, yeah.
If he goes in and he has some former military member who's there, who's trying to stay fit, who is really good, and he's teaching Mark Zuckerberg, well, this is how you do an armbar. And he slaps it on him, and Mark Zuckerberg taps, and he goes, oh, okay, hey, are you okay? Let me show you how to do that. Guess what? He now has a different view of that person. And he says, well, what else? What else did I not know? If he has someone there who he trains with day in, day out, and maybe 6-8 months in, the guy goes, I really hope that you don't interfere with this election. What? Well, look, I was removed from Facebook for stating XYZ about COVID, and I just think it was wrong. I guarantee you those conversations are taking place, and it's with people who've earned the right to talk with him because he's chosen to be in their proximity. It is not a small thing. That's the value of community. And we don't have many third places of what it used to be called. There was the office, home, and the third place used to be the pub. Right? That's where people used to have these discussions. You do have those in jiu-jitsu. There is a brotherhood, brother and sisterhood. There is a kinship. Also, the trans stuff goes out the window. The idea that men and women are the same, it goes out the window.
Why, Stephen? Why would that be?
I've rolled with female world champions when I was a hobbyist blue belt, and it was like a father with a child. You know why? Because I'm so much stronger. Yeah. The idea that there isn't a physical difference between men and women goes away. I guarantee you, Mark Zuckerberg, I guarantee you, I bet my life, he does not believe that biological men competing in women's sports have no advantage.
Not anymore,
because in jiu-jitsu, you roll with the women. Yeah. And Mark Zuckerberg is probably as weak as a male specimen can be, and he knows how he can overpower women with tremendous ease. I guarantee you those things change, and it opens you up to perhaps changing other political opinions.
Yeah, and I think getting outside of the circle, like getting outside of his bubble, because he's accomplished great things with his life. Of
course.
He's experienced adversity, and he's had to form teams. He's had to work with people. He's had to do all of these things that typically you would say, okay, these might lead you down that path, but he's had to do it in kind of this liberal bubble. So to your point, 98% of all contributions in 2020 by big tech went to Dems. So it's not even close where all of those contributions are going. He had to get around other people with different values, and he had to have conversations with them. And you're right. Those guys can't just come up to him on the street and have a conversation, have any kind of an impact. But if he's in there competing with them, learning from them, training with them, even if he disagrees with them initially, he gets to see like, hey, these are good people. These are hardworking people. These are people that I trust now, and they're giving me this information. It does make a difference. And it's no wonder, I think, that there are some of these institutions that are under attack, like, oh, that's toxic masculinity. The Dems don't want you to go do these things,
right?
Because they know if you do, the results could be that you go, wait a minute, like these guys deserve my trust, and they're telling me the truth,
right?
And I'm actually hearing it from somebody instead of somebody just telling me what I want to hear over here because I'm the billionaire founder of this company.
And it's not lost on me that he could just see, he could be reading the tea leaves going, Donald Trump's going to be president, so I want to ingratiate myself. That is very possible. Yeah. There could be some genuine regret, especially as you grow, you mature in life, you get married, you have children, people inherently become more conservative.
Yeah.
To be clear. Remember, Zuckerberg tried, you could either say an about face, or maybe there was some genuine regret regarding censorship during COVID when he gave an interview back in 2023. I think we have a clip. You be the judge here.
You just take some of the stuff around COVID earlier on in the pandemic where there were real health implications, but there hadn't been time to fully vet a bunch of the scientific assumptions. And, unfortunately, I think a lot of the kind of establishment on that kind of waffled on a bunch of facts and, asked for a bunch of things to be censored that in retrospect ended up being, more debatable or true. And that stuff is really tough, right? And really undermines trust in that.
I think he means it. I think that, I think a little bit of a trust in my institutions too much.
Yep.
Regret kind of kicks in. They go, oh, well, the government wouldn't lie about this kind of stuff, and I should censor it. And then they go, well, you know what? They did, and I shouldn't have censored it.
And I think as you get older, your sense of, especially if you've been successful and you have what you need, your sense of duty increases a little bit. Your sense of responsibility for what it is. I mean, how often do you have people who become unbelievably wealthy and say, well, what's it all for? What am I going to do now? And then they spend the rest of their life trying to affect real change. Also, I can tell you that he's done jiu-jitsu quite a bit.
Yeah.
Let me tell you why. His neck. And I mean that. If we could bring up a before and after picture of him a while ago, when you do, and anyone out there who's wrestled in high school, grappling sports, your neck always thickens. It's not really something that you can find bodybuilders with giant arms and shoulders and no neck. There's something about jiu-jitsu where you're constantly having to neck bridge and roll. You see that, and he hasn't really gotten much bigger, but his neck has thickened, which tells me that he's probably been doing it at least 2-3 times a week, a couple hours each session. It is something people call it wrestler's neck. It applies to any of the grappling sports. I bet you he's been doing it pretty damn diligently, and so he's been in that atmosphere. It's had more of an influence on him than The Office in Palo Alto. That's no small thing.
Well, and I appreciate that. And look, I'm trying to walk kind of a fine line here, because when people do have that kind of, you've talked about it, the flash of genius moment, what changed your mind? Was there an event that you can point to, or are you just doing it for political expediency or popularity? I am glad that Zuckerberg seems to be changing his mind, especially in that interview talking about the censorship and the institutions that he didn't trust. But where were you when it was going on? Because this information was available if you would take the time to look.
Right.
That information was available. At least the principles that free speech should not be infringed in this regard unless it is absolutely 100% fully necessary in some capacity. In his mind, that should have at least been the line. I don't even know that I believe that. I think freedom of speech is pretty much absolute. Right. There are very few, if any, limitations that I would ever place on it. But even in his mind, he should have had that like super high bar. And my problem is that it was available then. People were speaking truth then. Respected sources were speaking then. This isn't something you learn 3 years later.
But not people I don't think he had principles, and not the people who were in his direct circle. Now he has people telling him, hey, maybe you don't agree, but these are why these principles matter for the first time.
Yeah.
And I will say, yes, where was he then? I'm hoping he's there now. because it's still going on.
Yeah, I know.
It's still going on. So he could make it. In other words, if there's a new Hunter Biden situation,
Right.
or there's a new, I don't know, someone like myself, what happened with Chris Kyle, it happened with Ted Cruz, it happened
Right,
with Andrew
yeah.
Breitbart. These pages were being throttled. James O'Keefe. Maybe if this happens now in this election, he's going to have a blanket policy. You don't remove it. You don't remove it unless you know that it is absolutely false.
Yeah.
We have to allow this information. We have to allow this to travel freely and fairly through our algorithms. He could be there now, and that could be no small thing, because we know that just the big tech interference changed hundreds of thousands of votes, if not millions, in the last election. We know where Elon Musk is now with X, at least. He's not perfect.
Close. I mean, I just had an experience with this. So Shaney Rich and I did a video, and we used the word faggot. And we said, no, not gay, but like in the 90s term faggot. And people, wondering why we're using that term. It's because for some reason X is censoring that term, and they are big free speech proponents. We're like, why are you doing that? And so basically they took it down as hateful conduct, as hateful content. It had a lot of plays, and people were looking at it, and it was obvious we weren't. It was in jest, like it was kind of a joke. It's like you saying somebody's stupid but funnier.
Yes,
you know
it
what
is.
I mean. And
faggot's a good word.
Yeah, no, it's a good word. It's not a word that I use all the time. I used at the time in the 90s, I would say fag, like, you being a fag, like as a joke, but it was never at somebody gay. But for some reason, X is like free speech, sort of, and free speech, but joined GARM again. And then Elon files a lawsuit against, it seems like that very organization of this cabal of people. And it's like, do you not know that Linda Yaccarino joined this advertising consortium thing again?
Yeah.
Like 7 days prior to this. So it seems like they're going kind of back and forth.
They go they're not like Rumble.
No,
they're not like
Rumble's
Rumble.
absolutist. Rumble, there's the issues that you have Rumble, but they're absolutists on free speech.
Yeah.
Where it seems like X is like so close to being there.
But going
not
from
quite.
98% to even a little
that's
bit
true.
is progress.
Yeah. Look at this side by side of Zuck. That's pretty good. It's not just his neck, but you can see there's been a change.
But definitely the neck change.
Yeah, it did. It's much thicker.
There's always a difference. It's wrestler's neck. So I guarantee you he hasn't just been dabbling. He's probably been doing it. And there's a period, you guys comment, when you start doing jiu-jitsu and it starts opening up, like I would say about 6 months to a year in, especially if you have some natural ability, and you were the nail and now you're the hammer, and you see yourself improving, you start dreaming in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
It's all it becomes an obsession.
Yeah.
Because you're like, man, it's this tool that I have with me wherever I go. It's my body, and you think, how can I use my? Oh wait, what if? And it's all you. I went through a period
Like
where I was
parkour.
I guess for the unathletic, because you don't have to be super athletic to do
I could
this.
fight that guy, and I could fight that guy on a roof.
Yes.
And I could
run
fight that
here.
guy on a train.
I could fight that guy down there if I could swirl down this telephone pole and then jump off that brick.
and then you die, and
Yes.
it's like, well, that's
That's why I call it rolling.
Yes, exactly.
maybe I should
That's
do
a good
beginner's
parkour
level of
landing.
parkour.
I would not be very good at parkour. But you know what? You guys can comment and let me know what you think. I'm glad to see it. I don't trust and verify. Verifying, and then perhaps some trust will be gained.
Watch Slider with Crowder live Monday through Thursday, 10 a.m. Eastern.